Welcome to the Fatherhood Challenge podcast. The Fatherhood Challenge is a movement to awaken and inspire fathers everywhere to take great pride in their role and to challenge society to understand how important fathers are to the stability of an environment and culture. We're going to encourage and challenge each other to step up and do courageous things that make our families and communities better places. So let's get to it. Greetings, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me. It feels great to be back. I took a little bit of a hiatus from the podcast just to kind of regroup a little bit, prepare some new episodes, and change gears on some of the other content. Some of the changes you may have noticed, there's a blog on the website that wasn't there before. And some other things you might notice, there's a little more content on the Facebook page. So there's plenty there for you to look at and share and enjoy and just soak up and read. So that was a long time coming, and it feels good to have all that done, but it feels even better to be back with you. This feels like home. I appreciate each and every one of you hanging in there and supporting this podcast, supporting the movement, and listening to the episodes and sharing them. It's always appreciated. So thank you so much for that. So we're going to start things off. I have a really fun guest with me, just a great experience and all. I met him a few weeks ago and we had a great talk. He has a great story to share, a lot of wisdom, and I think you're going to benefit greatly from listening to what he has to say. And his name is Ernest Harris, and he's got quite a background himself. He is the CEO and the managing editor of Charm City Direct TV, and also the executive producer at WLEO 26.7 online radio. Did we miss anything else?
No, spot on. Spot on.
All right. Well, true to tradition, I like to start things out with a favorite dad joke. So what is your favorite dad joke?
So the favorite dad joke is my name. Of course, every father, or some fathers, I should say, uh, would like to pass on the name, like for example, a Charles Jr. or Derek Jr. or something like that, the third or Junior. So believe it or not, my godfather, I never knew this man's name. Never knew this man's name, and he lived right next door to me. And my dad is named Ernest Elton Harris Sr. And one day I came outside and Mr. Jones, that's what we called him, but of course his name was Ernest Jones. I didn't know his first name. And I said, "Mr. Jones, what is your first name?" And he laughed. He chuckled a little bit, and he said, "I'm surprised that you don't know." And I said, "Well, if I knew, I wouldn't be asking you." And he said, "My first name is your name." And I said, "Ernest?" And he said, "Yeah, my first name is Ernest." And I said, "Wow, we have the same name." And then when I went in the house, I said, "Wait a minute. My father's name is Ernest." That's okay. So it all makes sense now. My dad, my godfather, I could just imagine how it was in the hospital delivery room. My father is like, we need to pick a name. We need to pick a name. Okay, well, let's call him Ernest. Okay, well, why is that? My godfather is Ernest. Your name is Ernest. Crazy. So I am Ernest Harris. To be considered a junior, they said you have to have your dad's whole name, which is Ernest Elton Harris. But unfortunately, like I said, I don't know what was going on in the delivery room because on my birth certificate, it says Ernest Jr. Harris. So I'm like, did they mean Ernest Harris Jr.? Like, is Junior my middle name? Like, were y'all drunk? Was
Feels
there
like a conspiracy theory.
Right. Right. So that's my dad joke. I tell it to a lot of people. rest in power to my dad, who's been gone for a minute now. But of course, he lives in my heart. Uh, think about him every day from the values that he instilled it in me.
Tell me about your dad. What was life like growing up with him?
Wow, life was awesome. Although my dad did not live in home with me, I there was never a moment where I did not know him or he did not come around. And it's crazy because at first it was like one day of the week, on the weekends, of course, it was like a Saturday. And I think I needed something from him, and he came over that Friday, and he came and got me, and just spending time with him, was enough for me. And it began to be a 2-day weekend with him. He'll come and get me Friday into Saturday or something like that. But knowing him was awesome. We would go out on Saturday. Of course, our routine was to go to the barbershop. We just had this thing about the barbershop, man. He'll pick me up, go to the barbershop, get my hair cut, and then take me around the corner to this, they call it thrift store, where you get like clothes for very, very cheap. And he will stock up on a lot of clothes for me. And that was our routine, every weekend. And the barbershop was like right so the barbershop was in the back of the thrift store, so it wasn't a far, walk. You could walk right out the back door of the barbershop into the thrift store. I said, so convenient, So that was our, that was our little bond, our little connection. Knowing him, he was a working man. He always worked. He stayed at his job for a significant amount of time before he retired. And he was a he got out, he partied, drank a little bit, and he was a classy man. He always had on a suit or a short sleeve dress shirt and a pair of pants. And I said to my dad one day, I said, Dad, wear a pair of jeans, wear some tennis. And he said, son, I don't like tennis. This is how I dress. And I said, okay, if you like it, I love it. Just try to bring you up to the style, so to speak. So yeah.
What is it about the barbershop? There's something about that tradition. What is it?
Right. The barbershop, man, is, oh my gosh. If you ever been in a barbershop, you would just see the guys conversing, and they said that the barbershop is the black man's country club, you know. You go in, even if you don't get a haircut, you just sit there and listen to the stories, what's hot, what's trending in news, what's the latest on the street, the word on the street. And you're soaking all of this information in that you probably won't even know about or hear about. And knowledge. That was the best thing of all for me as a little child going into the barbershop. As I got older, of course, when I was a baby, one, I'm trying to stay in the chair to get my hair cut because you just can't imagine clippers buzzing in your head and it's like, what is this? But as I grew older and being around guys and older guys for that matter, just sharing history and sharing knowledge, that did something for me because this is something that is not taught in school. This is information that you probably won't, like I said, probably won't ever hear. And as I grew older, and I was blessed to have a child, my son who is 19. Of course, when he was little, I did the same thing to with him that I did with with my dad. I would take him every other week to the barbershop. And the barbershop that we went to in Emerson Village in Baltimore, one of the oldest barbershops in the city at the time, it was a two-sided barbershop. You had the newer crowd, you had the new the newbies, as we may call them, and then you had the old school in the back, and you saw that line in the floor. This is the newbies, and this is the old school, and you could just feel the atmosphere. The atmosphere was great. It wasn't nobody fussing. It wasn't no cussing. It was just the feel of a barbershop, knowing that when you step in here, you're going to get something in return, not just a haircut, but you're going to get some knowledge. You're going to get some information. You're going to get like a rites of passage, so to speak. Older guys telling young guys how to grow up.
It sounds to me like more like the haircut is just an excuse to go to the shop, but not necessarily the reason.
Right. When I found out, I said, "Hey, I don't have to get my hair cut today. Imma just go to the barbershop." I didn't do it often because then they'll look at you like, something is wrong with you. But I went there, I went there often, and just sat there because it was a couple of guys that I was cool with inside the barbershop, and I would just sit there and just pick their brain off of everything, life, business, what is going on in my city? What is your solution? Just to get that knowledge, man. Just to have that insight and that information passed on to you from people that been here before you and is willing to pass on that information. That just does something to me.
It's interesting because scripture is loaded with several texts that reference counsel for the younger generation to seek wisdom from the older generation
Right,
while they're still around.
right,
And that seems like that's exactly what happens in a barbershop. It's a place
right,
where men from multiple generations come together
right.
and fellowship and share wisdom.
Right, exactly. It is so true. Now there are some barbershops, of course, that don't display that, you know, that atmosphere. I'm gonna just call it that. But I'm gonna say the older to the uh upper class. I ain't even gonna say upper class, but the older generation and I'm talking about, like, from the 20 year olds to the 30-year olds. So when I say older, I'm talking about 30 to about 50, and I'm talking about barbers. And then the 20 to the 30, and that's your younger crowd. Um it's just it pretty much depends on the feel of the barbershop. If you go into a barbershop and you receive that warm welcome, that you could tell a good barbershop. I don't know if you can, but you could tell that your experience here is going to be good. And when you have a crowd full of people, a crowd full of guys, and they just sitting around, they talking, and you engaging in conversation, that's a really a good look, you know.
That makes me wonder and it makes me curious. Do you think fathers are more or less connected now with their children than they used to be?
Uh yes and no. Um I say yes. The bonds that fathers have with their children now, I see it a little bit, but it could be a lot more. And here's why I struggle with no, because growing up, even though my dad was not present in the house, it wasn't a day that went on that I did not know who this man was, you know.
Hmm.
And even if my mom was to chose another man and he, decided to live in my house, quickly I will tell you who my father was. Not saying that I would disobey this man, but I know who my dad is. But now you really don't see that now. Uh Dads are absent from the home for whatever reason. I don't know. The most common reason is because they didn't get the mom or the dad or the significant other, the wife, girlfriend, they didn't get along. So they broke up and went on their separate way. But the bond with the father and the child is always there. And even if the person, even if the dad is present in the home or not, it needs to be. I'm looking at a situation now where that is going on. A friend of mine just divorced his wife, and they're going through the whole seeing of children issue now, situation that's going on now. I don't know. It's kind of it's kind of a hard situation, or a hard thing to call, because I see some and I don't see some. It's like half and half, 50-50.
Gotcha. Yeah, and it's hard to. There are so many circumstances that contribute to that and can
Right,
complicate things.
right.
Just in your world and in your environment, are you seeing fathers just doing whatever they can to stay connected with their sons and daughters?
Right. Right. I go back to, the household, and guys, if fathers, if you're listening, I struggle with that, because when I'm a dad myself, my child now is 19. He lives with me, and I had that situation happen to me where I had to make a choice whether to stay at a house with a person that fell out of love with me and my son is there, or move on with my life and my son is still with his mom. So I had to make that choice. I had to, because I thought for many times, because I'm looking at TV, and I said, wow, the father is there, he's waking up, he's there with his kids. That's beautiful. But now we are talking reality, where do I necessarily have to be here for my son to know who I am? And that was the decision I had to make, because when I was there, I said, I'm going to be a dad who's going to live in the house with his son, no matter what. But then it gets to a point where you just can't take it. Misery sucks. Misery is it's a killer.
Hmm.
That's when I had to make the decision, because I'm not saying that she made it, and when I say she, I'm talking about his mom didn't make it hard for me, but knowing that not being intimate with her, not being able to talk to her, interact with her, was hard. And my son is still there, so it was a situation where I just couldn't take it no more, and I moved out. And I still saw my son, on the weekends. And then there was a situation where my son was staying with me permanently, full time. I say this to the fathers out there, that are pretty much going through what I just explained, as far as making that decision to stay in the home for your children. Know that your children will be good regardless. You know that your children know who you are. They know that you are dad, daddy, pop, or what affectionate name that they call you. They know that. Just be in your children's lives, whether you're there or not. So that's what I wanted to pass on to the fathers out there.
I have so much respect for the effort that you put in, and we talked about some of the circumstances going on in your life at that time. There's
Right.
a there's a painting I saw that really impacted me, and it was a picture of a dad stooped down in front of his child. It was
Hmm.
actually a little girl, and she was playing with him and he was playing with her, and and they looked like they were enjoying each other's company.
Right.
And then you looked at his back, and there
Right.
were all kinds of arrows in his back.
Right.
And his coat looked like it had some blood on it, and the arrows had little stickers on them that said, things like separation,
Right. Right.
court dates, and
Right.
custody agreements, and all these
Right.
arrows are in his back.
Right.
And he's putting on this face with his for his kids
Right.
to still be involved in that. And I look at that in contrast to my own life, and I've told my story about the situation with my own dad.
Right.
And the fact that I went decades without seeing him or having contact with him or any kind of interaction at all. And I
Right.
went almost my whole most of my life wondering, why didn't he make some kind of effort to find me? Why didn't he make some effort to be involved in some way?
Wow.
Obviously, he couldn't be in the house, but
Right.
there are things he could have done and chose not to do
Right. Right.
in spite of all the pain, in spite of all of that. And
Right.
it takes a tremendous man to step up. And that's the label. It takes a man, to a real man, to do what you did in spite
Right.
of all of the other pain going on in your life.
Right. Right. And I had said, and I made a promise to my son and to myself, because I could have, and I thought about it. I said, man, I need to get up out of here. And this is when he was born, and we wasn't even, you know, on the verge of breaking up. This was way before the breakup. And I said, I need to get out of here. I can't take this no more. I'm a new father, and something, spoke to me because of my conscience. I don't know if we talked about that when we was talking amongst ourselves before the show. I said my conscience play a big part in my life, and my conscience talks to me like a person sitting right next to me, and it said, "Why you want to do that now? He is here now, and he needs you more than he ever would." Right then and there, I said, "Okay, all right, I'll stay." And I promise never to have that thought again in life, that when my son needs me, I need to be there, drop everything and run to him. The thing is that, when I talk to guys and they have kids, and I'm talking about multiple kids, the first thing they say is, money. I said, well, money is not everything. What about time? What about the bond? What about just being there? Go see them, and then, of course, they come and say, "Well, she makes it hard," or I said, "Well, right now you're just making excuses. Like, at the end of the day, you don't owe anybody anything but your child or children. Be in your children's life, no matter what. If you have to fight, that is the most important fight that you have to fight in order to see your children. Be with your children, support, and love your children. And please understand this, for everybody that's listening, and money is not a way to bond with your children. There's a lot of fathers who think that dropping off a significant amount of money to their children on occasions, that's not love. That's not a bond. That's not spending time with your children. Money is not always the answer. So I needed to throw that out.
I think that's some valuable wisdom there. And and backing up a little bit to earlier, and you talked about your conscience telling you that you needed to spend that time with your kids.
Right.
And for me, I definitely believe that was the Holy Spirit that was
Yes.
actually trying to communicate with you.
Yes.
And I think it's a big deal that you listened, that you
Yes.
not only listened, but you took that advice very, very, very seriously and
Yes.
acted on it. And we went on with your story and how your life now is just so full of blessings. It's night and day. And I really believe that because of the sacrifices that you took and because of the effort that you put into it, and
Yes.
listening to that still small voice, I believe that your life reaped a lot of blessings from it, and still
Yes.
continues to do so. And
Yes.
I look at your story as a shining example for other men to look at that are in the same circumstance where they're going through a relationship struggle or whatever it is,
Right.
and they have to make that decision to put their children first.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your testimony and sharing your story. It was very, very valuable to all of us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate this.
Do you have any final words of wisdom that you want to share with our audience?
Of course, all you fathers out there, new or old, just love your children. No matter what, nobody, uh, there's no rule book to tell anybody how to love their children. Whatever it is that you do for your child, continue to do. Be in your children's life, especially now. This world is so crazy, beyond crazy. And right now, every little boy, every little girl needs their father, no matter what. Teach them some valuable lessons. Teach them, above all, some memories, important memories, important life lessons, and just overall, just love on your children. Love on your children. If you're in the home, if you're out of the home, make it an effort. I look at Nick Cannon, and a lot of people, point the finger at Nick Cannon a lot because he has a lot of children, and that's the first thing they say. Oh man, Nick Cannon got a lot of kids, and having more kids, But if you're able to have kids, if you can afford to have kids, then by all means have a multitude of kids, But at the end of the day, love your children.
Yes.
Support your children. If they are in sports, little league, baseball, soccer, ballet, recitals, go to those games, go to those recitals because your presence is a lifetime memory. They will remember that for as long as they live. And children, I just need to say this, children remember who loved them the most.
Yes.
If you were coming to these games, coming to these recitals, or just being there, spending time laughing, coloring, painting toenails and fingernails for the little girls, and cutting your son's hair and taking them to the barbershop,
Mhm.
they remember that.
They do.
Trust me.
They do. It's true. They do remember those details. You ask them,
Yes.
and even randomly, they'll bring some of the some of the stuff up that sometimes you don't even remember, but they do. All of that.
Right.
All of that does make a difference. So
Right.
I hope you're listening. That you all are listening to that advice and taking that very, very, very seriously. It's
Yes.
super important.
Yes.
So with that, our time is just about up, but I do just appreciate your time, every bit that you've been on here, all of the wisdom that you've shared with us. It is worth so much, and at the same time, it is priceless. So thank you so much for coming on here. Thank you so much for all of your time.
Okay. Thanks for having me. I appreciate this a whole lot.
Thank you. If you enjoyed the show and are getting value out of it, there are two ways you can support this podcast. One is by hitting the follow option on your favorite listening app. This will make it easier to see all the episodes and receive notifications when a new episode is released. The other is by checking out some of the swag in our store. They make great gifts for the holiday, a birthday, or any reason, and they help spread the word about this great movement. The link to the store is in the show description below. Thank you for your support, and I'll see you in the next episode.